If you want the truth, nothing could be forced. Everything has to come through presence. And that's what I do. I think I can say that when you come from as much trauma and neglect and bad things happen to you in your life, you could take two different roads. You could take the dark path, where you could be bitter and resentful and take out your abuse and your trauma on other people and make other people miserable. Or you could go within and try to figure it out. Study psychology and spirituality. And the answer to everything is being present. That's the answer to everything. Everything. Now, if you are following this channel, I am different people. Sometimes sometimes I want to help people. And that's why I wrote that book, to stop school shootings and mass shootings, and for people to understand, okay, this is how a psychopath feels, this is how a psychopath thinks, and the more we educate ourselves on what these journal entries are saying, the more we could be better equipped to stop school shootings and mass shootings in the future. And I also want to help people with trauma and direct them to three people: Gabor, IFS Therapy, Richard Schwartz, and Alice Miller. And I really feel like that's my reason for being here. But at the same time, I don't understand how this human race can continue existing. And I think people should stop having children in general, because our culture is just getting sicker. And as a culture, and even as individuals, we're losing our way. And I don't know if we could turn that back. The only answer is to be present and to no longer be your trauma, to no longer be your past, to no longer be your person, to no longer be anything, to just be the present moment and the stillness. And in that space, you become connected to all things, you become connected to creation, you become the stillness, and that's where wisdom comes from, in the present, being the present, being the stillness, and that is your true self. But in order to get there, you can't spend time around people that make you feel terrible. You have to go through all of your trauma, figure it out. If you feel pain or upset, or if you feel triggered by something, you have to get curious about it, be compassionate with yourself, and ask yourself, well, why am I so upset? Or why is this upset within me? You should never label yourself as an experience or as a thing. You should never say, I am upset, or I am this, or I am that, because what you really are is the present moment and the stillness, and connected to all things. You are all things in this moment. But you can only be so when you are present. If you're not present, you're not. When you are not present, you are your person. Your past, your worries, your desires, your worries about the future, your you as a 3-year-old, as a 5-year-old, as a 7-year-old. When you're not present. But when you are present, and there's nothing else in this world, there's nothing else that exists, and you're just here in this moment, and you're no longer your past or your future, you're just here with this tree. Everything else evaporates. And that is the key to eliminating trauma, psychopathy, narcissism, everything. But the problem is once we're out of that state, we become the psychopath again. We become the narcissist again. We become our trauma again. We become that person again. We become a person. But whenever we are the present moment, we dissolve the person. And we become the present moment and connected to all things. And that is where love and wisdom comes from. That's where true listening comes from. And that is where the understanding and the listening of where you need to go, what you need to do, the true intuition guides you and tells you how to fix your problems, how to solve your problems. But if you cannot be present, if you cannot get there, the truth won't arise. And you can no longer listen to those gut intuitions. That's trauma intuition. That's Peter Levine. But to just be here in this moment, you're no longer a person. You're no longer your trauma. But in order to get there, it takes work. It can be done. I do it all the time. I could be the most wise person in the world, but if I get going, I could turn into the psychopath. I've been to many mental institutions. The doctors came up with a rule for me at mental institutions, and it was that I can no longer talk about homicidal thoughts. I can no longer talk about killing people, and I can no longer talk about thinking about killing people. As soon as I started talking about it, I wanted to. Like, soon as I started to think about killing people, like, I just wanted to obliterate the planet. Because my theory is, well, if you don't value human life, you could take human life. If you start to get to a point where you really enjoy the thought of not being here, you start to think about the fact that not only why was I born, but I wish I never was born. And then when you get there, it's not even depression, and it's not anger, it's not aggression, it's like calm, calculated thinking, step by step by step, and it brings you to a point where you no longer want to exist. And then you start to get angry about how your parents really messed up and they shouldn't have had you. And if it wasn't for your parents, you wouldn't have had to experience all this crap. So you start blaming your parents, and you start disliking your parents, and then you start disliking everyone. And then you want to start taking people out. So it's a very slippery slope. I gotta end this video. I'm gonna do another one. Later.